Begin now, stage is all yours.
Well, it's really fabulous to be here, Pooja, and I want to thank everyone who's come online as well, trusting us with their hour today in the middle of their weekend to come and listen to something about communication. So we're talking about leveraging 6 different strategies to help to develop and to enhance the impact that you have in the workplace. Now, in Australia, because we're coming into the Christmas season, and I know this is not the case for everybody all over the world or even every person and every family, but it's almost like we're winding down our work year. But I thought this was a really great topic because you can think about it if you do have that break. But if you don't have that break coming up away from work or a little bit of time away, you can start implementing some of these ideas straight away tomorrow. Now, everyone who's come online with me before knows that I love to have a mantra, some saying or some idea that is significant for the topic that we're talking about. And the mantra I chose for tonight is called "The art of communication is the language of leadership." So the art of education is the language of leadership. And when I say leadership, and you'll realize this throughout the talk, for me, one of the most important people that you can lead is actually yourself. So part of today's exploration is really about the kind of conversation, the kind of messages that we even give ourselves, because that has a very, very big impact on who we are, both in our home, both with our family members and friends, but also with our colleagues at work. So just to reiterate, the art of communication is the language of leadership. And so we want to be leaders. We want to be leaders in our own lives, and we want to be leaders in the workplace. So this quotation comes from a man called James Hume, and he had the distinction of meeting Winston Churchill. And Winston said to him, I should say Sir Winston Churchill. It's not like I know him personally, Winston. But anyway, he said, "James, you need to go away and study history, because in history, you are going to find everything you need to know about statesmanship, politics, and leadership." And so he did that. And James Hume is an author, but he also was a presidential speech writer in his day. So probably one of the most important leadership roles was putting the words into the mouths of the presidents of the United States of America. And words are very, very important. But also what we're going to find is that words are also not quite enough, because communication is about a lot more than words. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I can share a presentation with you, and we'll carry on. So it says I'm disabled from doing that, but you've made me a co-host, haven't you, Pooja? Miss Pooja said she'd made me a co-host.
You are the co-host now.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So now I can share that. Right. And I think from my screen, I'm online. Can you see it as well?
Yes.
All right. So you can see I've used a very, very old-fashioned example of communication. And I don't know if you were lucky enough as a child to play with these tin cans. It always used to amaze me so much that you could talk into the one side, and then the sound waves would go all the way through the string or whatever it was, and you could hear it. As long as the string was taut enough, you could hear it in your ear. So the important thing, though, was that there were some conditions about whether that communication, which started on one side, ended up on the other side. Because apparently one of the worst things we can do is imagine that we've communicated, but actually we haven't. There's been something broken. And the first thing I want to share with you actually is something in a minute about broken communication. But the one thing I want to say here is that no matter what job you have in life, your success will be determined 5% by your academic credentials. Now that sounds very unfair given how much time we spent getting academic or work credentials. 15% will be determined by your professional experiences and the way you've learned to be at work. And then 80% of your success is going to be determined by your communication skills. So this is a bit scary because we think like what we might have learned at college or uni or school or something is going to make us successful. But really, more importantly, it's about the kind of communication that we have, that we put in flow with the people around us. So I want to tell you this little story about a guy, a friend of mine, who he was invited for lunch at his friend's house, and there was a big family gathering, and he sat at the table, but he was opposite this child, about 4 years old, and this child just constantly stared at him throughout the dinner. I mean, he did eat, but every so often when my friend had a look across the table, this child was staring at him and staring at him and staring at him. And eventually he got quite uncomfortable and he thought, have I got the old thing? Have I got spinach in my teeth? Is my hair sticking up? Have I spilt on my shirt? What is going on? And eventually he said to the child, pretend his name is Jonathan, Johnny, you've been looking at me a lot. Is there something that you want to tell me? Or is there something that I don't know about? And Johnny said, I've been watching you because I've been waiting and waiting to see you drink like a fish. So if we just let that land for a minute, he's been waiting to see if my friend was drinking like a fish. So in Australia, and maybe in other parts of the world, drinking like a fish means probably you've just had a little bit too much to drink. It doesn't mean this, which is a fish drinking. But this child's understanding of drinking like a fish was, I wonder how a fish drinks. He didn't realize the allusion to the fact that maybe on one of these lunches, my friend had had a little bit too much to imbibe. But the interesting thing was he also realized that his friends were talking behind his back, and he must have said something like, oh my goodness, but that Michael really had a good time. He was drinking like a fish at our last lunch. So there was this interesting little breakdown in communication, depending on what you understand by the words and what's been said. And there was another of these situations where a lady went to a physiotherapist with a swollen ankle, and it was really, really sore. Anyway, what he said to her is what you would say to many, many, many people is go home and ice your foot twice a day. So what do you imagine in your mind? Ice your foot. This lady was not a sports person, had really very little to do with sports people. So she comes back to the doctor a week later, and this ankle still looks like this. And he says, what have you been doing? Have you been icing your foot? She said, listen, it takes such a long time. I've only been able to do it every second day because it takes hours and hours. I'm in the kitchen the whole afternoon. And he says, well, what do you mean? That you take this packet of peas out of the deep freeze. She says, peas? I've been icing my foot twice a day, every day. Or she's been using cake icing. She has no understanding of an ice pack. So she has been making icing in the kitchen because she is much more conversant with the idea of baking and making icing. And so she's been putting cake icing on her ankle. And of course, it's having no effect. But once again, I mean, after he and his colleagues have been laughing for ages about the situation, the realization dropped that when we are communicating with someone, you've got to start where they are, not start where you are. So you have to kind of find that common point of departure for your communication. So I thought these two cute little stories will actually help you to realize how important it is to get on the same page when we are communicating with people. And sometimes we have to work quite hard to get to that point. And before we go into those 6 strategies that I was talking about in our title, there really are 4 golden rules about communication. And the first golden rule is that communication works for those who work at it. So if you want to be a good communicator, it is something that you have to take a lot of care about and really think about so that you can make it as effective as it can be. And what I'm hoping is that at the end of tonight, with these 6 strategies, that you will be able to make communication work for you a little bit more successfully, because you will have just you probably do all these things, but it's just going to clarify for you. So that's golden rule number 1. You have to work at it. Golden rule number 2 is be kind to yourself first. And I mentioned that right at the start. If you see this fellow with the good icon and the bad icon, you can be telling yourself, oh, you're such an idiot. Oh, you always do this. Oh, I can never, you're never going to be able to learn this or do this. And that is the bad one, giving you all these messages, because you're creating a horrible self-fulfilling prophecy for yourself out of that. So rather, every time you do make a little blunder or a little mistake, it really is an opportunity to learn and to change something and to just improve it for the future. Because if you're continually creating negative self-talk in your mind about who you are as a person, who you are at work, and you're even telling yourself incorrect things about how people are perceiving you, that self-talk is going to impact on how you can develop your relationships in the workplace. Now, I'm hoping everyone's with me. So if you're happy and you're listening, I'd love to see a thumbs up or some kind of little I love it. Shavash, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Suze. It's very nice to know that you're on board and that we're heading in the right direction. So number 2, thank you, Marie-Therese. Thank you so much. And be kind to yourself first. And also, Ankita, thank you. So everyone's with me. That's beautiful. The third one is to really be aware that a lot of the time we walk around with assumptions in our mind, and they might be absolutely false. So you've come into the workplace, and for some reason, someone didn't greet you that morning. So you kind of imagine that they're cross with you or you've done something wrong. And really, it's got nothing to do with you whatsoever. Nothing. You are assuming things and basing your action on that. And in fact, it has no bearing on the truth. So really have a look at the reality. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, she's so angry with me, or I wonder what I did to get, to be ignored this morning, just say to yourself, oh, she was in a hurry today. Maybe she just didn't even see you, or maybe something happened and she has, or he has something on his mind. And so that was the reason. So really the third golden rule of all kinds of communication is it's really important to find out exactly what is the truth, or not to jump to conclusions. And then finally, and this is a hard one, I'm actually very bad at this myself. Communication is actually a two-way street. And even in this communication, I'm talking and I'm not listening back. So I'm hoping at the end of this presentation, I'm going to be hearing back from people about their understanding and experience of communication, because genuinely it should be a two-way street. And the listening part is almost more important than the part where you're talking. So when you're on a one-way street, when it's all about you talking, the one way is the wrong way. So these are 4 of the golden rules. We'll just quickly go back so you can see what they are. So communication works for those who work at it. Be kind to yourself first. Be aware that you could just be carried away by assumptions. And finally, communication is a two-way street. Now, we spoke earlier about, 80% of your success at work is going to depend on your communication. Now, there are some more statistics. So Albert Mehrabian was a researcher, and he discovered this communication model from and you can read up on his papers. Look, and like all research, not everybody 100% agrees. So there are different ways of viewing this, but in general, this is a trend. So 7% of the meaning takes place through words. 38% takes place through the tone and the voice. And 55% of the communication takes place through the body language you use. So just have a look at that. Only 7% of what we say comes through the words. What we are saying is coming with our whole self, including our tone of voice and our body language. Now, I want you to really consider this body language thing. I don't know that we've got some women on the line and some men on the line, and I know gender issues always get very interesting, but it is quite common in meetings for women, for instance, to cock their head to one side, to listen intently. And in doing that, they almost put themselves in the position where they are a little bit down in status. So just by doing the simple body language thing, it is communicating something. So if you're wanting to be taken seriously, keep your head straight on your shoulders. There's something about how purposefully you walk. There's something about the set of your shoulders. There's something about how you use your hands. There's something about how much you move around. So there's so much being communicated, and it's actually worthwhile taking some time to go onto the internet and read up a little bit about body language. I'm not going to have time to spend on tonight, but it is a very, very important thing when it comes to communication. Now, our communication is imbued with our values and our beliefs. Everything you say, every time you communicate, you are not only communicating the words, you are communicating everything about what you believe in life. This starts from the first moment a mother might look into the eyes of her baby or a father. That communication is already filled with what they believe that child is capable of. So how you communicate with someone, you can either communicate with their weaknesses and their faults, or you can communicate with their potential. And it's huge. And this is really, really important, no matter who we are talking to. Even though you may not be conscious of it, when you communicate, everything you believe about what is important in life is part of that moment. Your past experiences, your relationships, your belief systems, and your expectations will influence every engagement you have with another. This is quite a big idea. But if you think about, say how some parents might talk to their children, or how some people might talk with their colleagues, or how you might talk with your friends, everything that your values, the way you talk to maybe a taxi driver, the way you greet the people who are doing chores in the office around you, immediately you are projecting your beliefs about people and your level of respect for another straight off. Now, we come to these 6 strategies. Is everyone ready? Yep, we're ready to plunge in 6 strategies. So with all kinds, I love these hands. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys. Thank you so much. It gives me a sense that everyone's still here, and I hope that you're getting some good information up to now. So the first thing about communication is that it has to have a purpose. So even if it's very instantaneous, even like we came on tonight and we said, how are you? The purpose is just to acknowledge someone. So it's really quick and easy. It's just an acknowledgement. It's yeah, okay, you're here, I'm here, we're together. It's cool. So the purpose can be simple and easy, or the simple can be something that this purpose is something that you would be spending months crafting in your workplace. And I'll come to that in a minute. But because communication is purposeful, it is often a really, really good idea to plan what you're going to say. Not only what you're going to say, how you're going to convey the message. And there are hundreds of ways to communicate messages, and the modern world has given us even more, because now we have all these digital communication strategies. So like, for instance, you might want to maybe you want to give someone some constructive criticism. So do you just go in the staff room and say something, oh my gosh, I noticed that you blah, blah, blah. Other people can hear it. You haven't planned it. You don't really know what you want to say, and you haven't planned an outcome for it. And it's not going to be very efficient. So the next thing in your planning is to determine what is the time and what is the place. Where is the ideal time and place to pass on that purposeful message? The 4th strategy is to develop some different styles of communication. So, I've just been watching The Crown, and Maggie Thatcher is such a study. She's just so wonderful, because no matter what happens, she is still Maggie Thatcher. She will never come away from her communication style. I don't think she ever went into Parliament and said, hey guys, hope you had a great afternoon. Is it cool? She'd never say that. She'd never say groovy. I think groovy would have been a really important, because the Beatles and people like that would have been around, right? So groovy would have been a big word, but she would never have created different styles. And sometimes it's worth having a different style. Then we move on to number 5. I haven't really numbered these because they're all probably equally important. But the communication loop, and we'll come to it in a minute, is really understanding how far that message has to go. Because remember, we said that between the first tin can and the next one, something can break. This loop can break if we don't understand it. So there's a communication loop where communication is outgoing, and then there's a feedback loop when communication is incoming. And we'll talk a little bit about that again too in a minute. So what I want to say about education, and remember we spoke about styles, there is formal communication, and in the workplace, this is very, very important. And there's also informal communication. And you need to realize that those 6 strategies relate to both kinds of communication. So formally, we want to put things in place in a formal way. So sometimes these even have to be written down in policies and protocols and norms of engagement. And you want to be communicating very, very precisely with people. But equally, even in your informal communications with people in the workplace, you want these 6 strategies to be around, but they will be qualitatively different. They will be slightly different. So let's just go back and have a look at them again. The purpose, the planning, the time and place, the style, the communication loop, and the feedback loop. If this is formal, you want to have a strong purpose of communicating your vision, your mission, your understanding of roles, workplace procedures, workplace communication. You have to plan it so that it is available and that everybody knows. And I'll come to why in a little minute, but it actually can't be a default, unthought about, unconsidered thing. It has to really be put in place. So therefore, as a team, not on your own, you have to plan how that communication is going to happen. And if it's, say it's a school and you have to communicate with parents, what is the time and place and how are you going to communicate? Is this via email? Is this a newsletter? Is this a handout at the beginning of the year? If it's corporate, how are you going to tell people what the protocols are when they're new? How are you going to do that? What is the process? What is the procedure? What are the protocols? What style do you use? So it is going to be a little bit more formal. And, you've got to make sure that the new people know as much as the old people, and that everybody in every department knows what's going on. And you have to make a real place for feedback to happen. It's not going to happen just by mistake. Nothing is. So that's why it's even more important in formal, but it's not unimportant in informal. So if you imagine talking with your children, for instance, so you and your partner, if you have a partner, and I know there's some families where there's a single parent or even a grandma or a primary caregiver, but if only some people know the rules or only some people know the piece of information or what happened, you're going to have a break between the tin cans. It's going to happen. And, you can have a very authoritarian style with your children. You can have a very laissez-faire style with your children, or you can work together for the culture of where a little bit more casual works and where a bit more formal works. But you have to think about all of these things, even in your informal communication, and give your children and your friends opportunities to feed back to you so that you know what's going on. So formal, informal, all 6 strategies are important. And in the formal, it's really, really important that these protocols are in place, because if people don't understand them, they are not going to operate to them, and they're not going to understand why they're there. And the why is very important. Sometimes people won't do it because they don't understand why. Important. So what is your goal in terms of your communication. And I think you know what this means, especially since we've spoken now about formal and informal. Somebody's got to know something, and there's a reason, and that is your goal. So when you're planning, you have to think of a whole bunch of things. It's like, what do I really want to say? Why am I saying this? Who am I going to say it to? How am I going to frame this communication? How am I going to make sure that the communication is remembered? And how can I hear back what landed? How can I make sure that it landed in a way that I intended for it to land? And one of the things, there's this little system you can use, the STAR system, when you're planning something. Like, what is the S is, what is the situation? And it can be very, very different. So the situation might be you're getting a new member of staff. The situation might be someone arrives every day late and they're disturbing your meeting every single time. What are you going to do about it? So, I mean, one thing is, you can take them aside and have the conversation. Another thing might be to plan to just really be very complimentary when they arrive on time. I don't know what it is, but there is a situation. What is your task? What is your communication task? Is it to ignore it? I don't think so. Then what action is required? Once you've decided what you're going to do, how are you going to do it? What steps are you going to take? And be very clear in your mind what the result is that you are seeking, and hopefully a result which is going to mean that the feedback from them is going to be positive as opposed to negative. So STAR: situation, task, action, and result. And having a very clear result is great because it leads you to good action. I mean, if you want to have a good relationship with them at the end, it's going to make you think carefully about what you plan to do. And time and place is crucial. You never want to do anything negative to someone when they have other people listening in. It's just so disrespectful. And I don't think they'll ever forgive you because they get so embarrassed. So there are ways of ensuring that you make time, even how you frame that. Could I see you in my office at 4:00 this afternoon? It's not going to land as well as, something's come to my attention and it involves you and I really want to have a little chat. And I don't know how you frame it, but you're going to do it. But you create the time and you create the place. And one of the interesting things is that the harder the conversation is, the easier it is if you're walking and moving, the easier it is if you're not looking at each other. So sometimes if you really have to give hard feedback or hard information, take a walk. Maybe you ask him to come away with you at lunchtime, because what happens is in the middle of the walk, when it gets a bit too hard, you can shift your attention and say, oh my goodness, look, that tree is flowering now, or something that can dissolve the energy and the tension. I don't know if you have kids. I have kids, and some of our best conversations were had, the hardest ones, when I was driving and they were in the back seat, because they didn't even have to look at my face. They were looking at the back of my head, and it gave them space. And, again, they could say, oh, Mom, be careful, or, or, oh, my goodness, we're passing such and such, or we're near the school, and the thing is, or even doorways. Funny, I found very often in a doorway. So you're not choosing the time and place ahead of time. That's what I'm saying you should do. But just every so often, the time and place happens, and it's the opportunity and you can grab it. But that time and place is a very important thing. Then your style. So you can have, it really is going to depend on your personal style and what you're comfortable to do. but try and have a very formal style, which you set up in a very formal place. And then, the less formal, more day-to-day kind of contact where you're speaking to people in a completely different way. And let me tell you, a sense of humor can go a long way. Then we spoke about this communication loop. This is really interesting because, I was director of early learning at a school, and I would plan things. And, you try and make sure that everybody knows everything. But of course, every so often you slip up. So someone would come and say, they'd stand in front of me and say, "Now, Liliane, we love what you're doing. And yeah, we're with you. But you know what? We need a list. We need a list over there on the window. Go in your office. I'm not letting you go anywhere now. Go and write the top 5 things we have to do in the next hour, and then the next 5 things we have to finish before the end of tomorrow," whatever it is. People need to know. They can't do what they have to do if they've never heard it, and they've never been informed, and they haven't been told why, how, when, with whom, etc. So that communication loop, and the kinds of questions you can ask yourself are, okay, I've just heard this news. So-and-so is going to be late. Who needs to know? Because if you don't pass on, and they don't pass on, and they don't pass on, you're going to end up in chaos. So the communication loop is very important. And then finally, the feedback loop. Because every time, I've said our values are in our body. Every time we are giving someone feedback, we are getting feedback. It can be conscious, whatever we're saying to someone else, they're saying something in their own mind. So the idea with your feedback is to be as constructive as kind, but also as effective as possible. So go back to your star. Remember we said star was? I can't remember it now. Let's go back. There. Situation. What is your task? What action is required? And what is the result sought? So this is the what you want to get out of your feedback, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. I'm going to stop talking in a minute, everyone. One of the most marvelous communicators of all time, you don't have to go very far when you're thinking about leadership, than Nelson, Rolihlahla, Mandela. Imprisoned in South Africa for 29 years. And when asked how he got through that 29 years of imprisonment, he said, you know what? It was 29 years of preparation. 29 years of preparation. And when they asked him about his communication style, he said, I used to go everywhere as a child with my father. His father was a chief, in South Africa. And whenever he used to go to meetings, he said, I watched my father as he was working, and he would never speak first. He would wait for every other person in the room to speak. In those days, and it was and still is, quite a paternal society. So there weren't many women in that circle, I might add. So I might add a few in there. But he listened to everyone. And then, with the combined wisdom of everybody, he was able to come up with the best decisions. So it's really an interesting thing. And then another person that I loved listening to talking was a woman called Carla Rinaldi. And she's the CEO of the Reggio Emilia schools, very, very famous infant toddler centers and preschools in northern Italy, in the city of Reggio Emilia. And she used to say, that when you listen to someone, you take them out of anonymity. They are no longer anonymous. And this is what happens when you listen to people. So sometimes in a meeting, when we're discussing something, the people who don't come forward, who aren't comfortable to, we don't hear their voice. They are anonymous. So in order to listen more in the workplace, what you can do is create a protocol of dialogue as opposed to discussion. In a dialogue, you ask for everyone's opinion first. So Nelson Mandela's father, he had he opened dialogue. And so the combined wisdom of the group, and it frees people and it takes them out of anonymity. So it's very, very important for communication. So I'm going to leave you with 3 quotes. The first one is from Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Highly Effective Families, etc. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And you know me, I'm one of those people, and I have to really, really make myself slow down and listen. So listen in order to understand. Then this beautiful African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So sometimes if we want to just follow our own ideas and we're not listening and we're not communicating for everyone's contribution, we will not weave this beautiful mat you see here with these amazing colors, with this incredible unity. So to go far, to work with others. And then finally, from Michael Jordan, this amazing, amazing sportsman, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. So our communication, we can be really good at what we do, but we are never going to do it by ourselves. So our communication is all about having the ability to listen to everyone around us, to be respectful of everyone, and to make sure that the purpose and the plan is in place. And that's the end of the, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then hopefully I'll get to see some of the people again. There we go. At least I can see who's on the screen and who's around. And I would love to hear from some of our participants what they've experienced in their workplace, what is really good, you know, what might not have worked so well. So I'd love to open the floor now to anyone who'd like to contribute to the conversation.
Hello. Hi, Lily. This is Ankita.
Hello. Who's that? Sorry.
Okay, I think there's a network issue. I would not be able to switch on my video, but this is Ankita. Are you able to hear me?
Hello, Ankita. Yes, please go ahead.
How are you doing, first of all? How is your weekend?
Very well. I'm having a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Same here, same here. First of all, thank you so much for that insight on communication. I myself is very much into it. And I don't know, I mean, some random event I just noticed on LinkedIn. I don't even know Pooja. But somewhere I don't know. The moment I read about the 6, the strategies on communication, I was totally inclined. I was a little occupied, but still I took out time to hear this. And it was a wonderful session. Trust me. I mean, whatever you have taught us today and whatever it was, the content, it was amazing. I mean, I have a good take-home message. Because one thing what I really want to tell you that the listening skills, even I never used to listen initially when I actually started my career. So there was a constant feedback from my seniors and my mentors that you have to listen and then you have to. So there was an intent to reply always rather than to understand the other person. So I think this is definitely going to be my take-home message. and I will definitely follow it. And in my working, place, or in personal life, or wherever I'm going. So definitely, it is a wonderful session that we had on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you very much.
Ankita, thank you so much for your contribution. I'm just listening to you. So have you implemented some listening that has had some good outcome in the past that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll just let you know about my little bit of career. So basically, by education, I'm a microbiologist. I'm a clinical microbiologist. And initially, now I have just switched my job. Initially, I used to work in one of the research organizations where I started my career. So I was a little I was a little rookie and a little raw initially when I started. So and there was this so I have this leadership. I feel that I have this leadership quality because I feel that yes, I can do that. I mean, I can I can be the captain of the ship, and I can I'm a very good team player. So I used to feel that, and definitely I think I am. So I'm not boasting myself. So in that zone wherein, there were like too many seniors where I joined in my previous organization, there were people who were very senior to me. So there, I think in that area where I was working on, so there were different opinions where I also used to give my opinions. But I think in my subconscious mind, I used to always be like, okay, this is something I feel this is right. This is what I feel is correct. This is what I feel, I should do it, without listening to the other person, that, okay, there could be an other perspective, there could be other vision. So that is how I think I've learned, and I've come a long way. And now I think I'm in a better position to really understand, okay, what the other person is saying, or just to have a insight, okay, what the other person is coming from. So definitely, I think it has helped me a lot in my working space and also in my personal space too. So that is right.
Fantastic. And we said that, the art of communication is the language of leadership, because we can't lead only ourselves. We have to lead in order for the whole organization or the whole family or the whole friendship group to go ahead. And I'm so thrilled with you coming on and sharing that with us. And I wish you the very best of luck, because I honestly believe you're a leader. I can hear it. Straight
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to share something from their perspective, from their workplace, from their ideas?
Yes, you can unmute and speak. Even you can share the feedback.
I know some people are really shy because they know we're live streaming, but it's just a conversation.
And I must say, Lily, it was really an amazing session, and you always bring in something which is very common at new and important. We always tend to ignore many small or simple things in life. We talk about many big things on day-to-day basis, but I think these are the key areas that we have to concentrate because I think it's as you mentioned, it's communication is to need to be two-way street, and I have really have encountered many of them, even at my workplace, or probably in other places where I have associated to work on different things. So it's actually many of them think that leadership is just passing the order, or just only communicating what needs to be done from their perspective, without even considering how team is going to do, and what are the other help, or what are the requirements, other requirements, all that. I think it's very essential that we need to understand how important it is to understand the person. As initially you give two examples where probably child completely took it with a different meaning. It's same with the lady, as a patient. It's really, I'm a lawyer and I understand it is essential to get into the shoes of your client or another party whom you are speaking, and try to understand to what extent he'll be able to understand what you are communicating. Only then we'll be able to communicate better. If I just talk to one of my clients with all my legal vocabulary, obviously, if he's just a layman, he won't be able to understand everything. I think it's essential that you first talk to the person and understand where he stands, and then try to communicate. Really an amazing session, and I definitely want to have you again and again.
You're very kind, Pooja. But yeah, all communication, I don't know if anybody listens to Tony Robbins. I mean, he's probably one of the most famous influencers in professional development in the world. True. I absolutely love listening to him. But he talks about all communication as building rapport. So rapport is a genuine relationship. And you can't have rapport, as you're saying, if you're coming out with very technical language. And so he will talk about ensuring that that person knows what the language means. So he might say something like, it's like something, as though. So if you don't know what the mitochondria is in your cell, and I know that Ankita will probably know very well about mitochondria, but he might say something like, they like the battery in your car. They're the thing that gives you the energy. And so they like, and put it into some format where that person can understand it, and you make sure. So building rapport that way. But then there's also building rapport around mirroring the person that you're with. And so mirroring maybe, the gestures, mirroring their tone of voice. Are they loud and boisterous so you can be loud and boisterous to make them feel like you have rapport? Or, do you calm it down? And it's not cynical. It's a situation of making them feel comfortable with you in that moment of building rapport so that you can communicate together. So, building rapport is what it's all about. And you can be the best boss in the world, but if you can't communicate with people and you're not listening, you may be going to get a lot of passive resistance. And in a previous talk, Pooja, we spoke about the organization as like a forest, where you think every person in the forest is standing individually on their own. But actually underneath a forest is this incredible, what they call the wood wide web, where there's this root and bacteria system where all kinds of communication is happening under the ground, and it's influencing every single tree in that forest. So every organization has its wood wide web, and everybody kind of knows what's happening. So communication is a very, very important thing to work on, so that it's not just default. You actually need to design communication. And I'm hoping that if we get nothing out of this evening, that it just makes you more aware of what a fabulous communicator you're going to be from tomorrow. In fact, from when you switch off from this video now tonight.
Hi.
Hello, Marie-Therese.
Hello. How you going?
Good.
Thank you. I loved this lesson. It was my favorite. I'm a drama teacher, and I teach a lot of people who have Asperger's and different things to that effect. to communicate to other people online, you know, and a lot of them look at their keyboards when they're talking, and they don't make eye contact because they find that difficult. So I loved this, what you were saying, because about that African speaker, because he asked questions before he started his presentation. Now, what I said to the last person I spoke with to teach, if you make contact with the other person with your eyes, they will automatically focus on what you're thinking and they won't wander off in their head. So if you're trying to sell them some technical stuff, which is kind of boring, but if you're making eye contact, all of a sudden you will make it more interesting for the other person, and therefore they will not wander off in their head and they will be engaged in what you're saying. And so there's an energy between people that occurs. I was an actress on stage for 25 years and I won Best Actress Queensland. So I was
Fabulous.
really...
Rod, that's amazing. I love that.
Thank you. And I was so nervous when I started. My knees used to shake on stage because I was scared of the audience, and everyone thought it was part of the character. But after a while, I started focusing on, I stopped worrying about my ego, and I started worrying about how that person was enjoying whatever it was I was giving them. And I was focused on them, so not on myself. So if you focus on the other person and you're looking at them and you're watching their reactions, you're going to say the sort of things that they need to hear because you're seeing their facial expressions and things like that. And it's very much the same when you're acting on stage. But I really want to thank you for letting me come to this meeting, because it reinforced in me everything that I've been trying to understand about myself and teaching drama students, and also people who need to learn presentation style themselves. You know, the nerds who are very technical. I don't like to say that because they're brilliant, but they're technical and they're very knowledgeable and they're often introverts. And to try and help them understand what it is that unites people is a whole different area. And so you've given me a lot of great tips. So thanks so much.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And I love that shift that you spoke about, because a lot of the time, you know, you are nervous and you're introverted because you're worried about how you are going to look. But the minute you can shift, and really what you're doing there, Marie-Thérèse, is you going into a stage of leadership, service leadership, where you are serving the audience. And I just love that shift. And I think once people understand that, then the focus is off them and they into...
And my voice stopped shaking, my legs stopped shaking on stage when it shifted from my introspective feelings into someone else, which was the audience. And I became a very good actress, so much so that the Federal Arts Minister said I was the finest actress in Queensland, if not Australia. Whether he was exaggerating, I don't know, but it was lovely to hear that. And so a very nervous person, because I grew up, I was very, very nervous and shy, and to convert what you were saying is actually what takes you out of yourself into a much more productive way of being, and healthier psychologically, because you're not worried about yourself anymore. You're worried about the other person.
Yes,
so
and there's so many ways you can do that, you know. So some people respond, you are at stage, so you can do this. But some people respond to touch, like if you just touch their shoulder or something like that. Some people, you know, timing is important. And as you say, eye contact, but also being aware culturally, I think we have to expand our understanding of body language and
That's a
how
hard
this
one.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
in some cultures that, you know, you're not meant to have the strong eye contact, and in some cultures the strong handshake isn't a good thing. But being aware of it is really important. And I think as an actress, you're probably observant enough around you to see what
yeah.
makes people comfortable.
Yeah, when I'm dealing with different nationalities, which I did in Melbourne a lot when I was down there. I married an Italian man, but when I was down there, I noticed how different people were, and sometimes, you know, obviously, some of the cultures prefer the man to lead, and so you would just feed them bits of information so that they would lead and not feel uncomfortable. Or, you know, some people don't like a kiss on the cheek. Some people don't feel comfortable with that. I was comfortable with that because I grew up with European people. It is very much about culture, and, you know, we've been very much influenced by the American culture, and women are very direct.
Yes.
And so that's kind of difficult for a lot of the Europeans. They expect some sort of more sort of gentler, subservient kind of way with women, but so you change it a little bit, or you change it around just to suit the people. But all in all, it's an exercise in observation, even if regardless of their culture. If they're responding to you, it's happy, you know, when they're making eye contact, when their face is looking good and it's looking healthy and happy, you know, and it's looking like it knows what you're talking about and it's not switched off. It's the same with children, you know, you can tell with them when you're teaching children, you know, that they start fiddling, or if they start looking out the window or like that, you know that that's the time to brighten things up, maybe get them up to move around a bit. So you change the conversation a little bit. But anyway, that's all I've got to say. And I really appreciate what you've got to say. So that was fantastic. I really loved it.
Thank you, Marie-Therese. I see Sivash.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sivash. I'm software engineer. I should say goodbye, but but since it's a presentation about the communication skill, I was thinking, okay, let's say some words.
Good.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you so much, Lily and Pooja, for this was wonderful presentation. Actually, that was awesome, so much informative for me. I believe there are more details about each of these strategies to learn, but this event was really good start to get foot into, and I just want to say thank you to gave us these clues, and also thanks to others to sharing these their experiences. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will take 1 minute. As Mary was mentioning about focusing on audience, I just got this one incident in my head. One of my students have got some suggestion from his relatives. He was preparing for one of the annual day functions speeches, and this relative suggested him that you just forget about everyone else and you just focus on what you have to speak and just, you know, practice and go there. When you're on stage, you just think that there is no one in the auditorium. I told him, if you do that, you won't serve any purpose, because your purpose is to connect with the audience and you want to share the information. And just remember that you have audience there who are interested to listen to you. So they are there. With that confidence, you go and speak. You know, they are there to listen to me, and they are here all the way. So just to listen to me. So you have to make sure that you are talking to them, not talking to yourself. So I think that's what that suggestion many of our young generations or students get in schools and from parents, to forget about the audience and just focus on the topic. I think if you focus on the audience, then your topic serves purpose, I believe. And when Mary was talking about, how she just got rid of shivering hands and all that, so that is what I think happens when you focus on audience and you start talking about, what actually they are looking forward to.
Yes, that's so true. So true, because they are the other part of the two-way street, aren't they? The audience there. So thank you very much to everyone. I see some people are finding it's time to leave, but thank you very much for your lovely messages and for really wonderful participation. We really appreciate it when people give us the signals that they're with us and having some fun, and especially if they contribute to the conversation. So yeah, it makes our hearts sing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily, for joining us again and for this wonderful session. And see you all next weekend with one more topic. Event is already up on the LinkedIn. Please join me next weekend. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. And if anybody would like to email me, my email address is at the top of the chat, and my website is www.kriegler-education. So visit me. Contact me. I'm always very happy to hear from people. If there's anything that you think I can do for you, I'm very happy to do that too. So good night, everyone, and thank you for a really, really lovely session with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.